Welcome, everybody, to the Monthly Movie Dispatch, the movie review show from friends that you can trust. Every week, we broadcast a review of a new film, talk about some film news, and recommend what to watch. We've been talking, critiquing, and gushing about movies, cinema, for as long as I can remember, and we aim to bring you honest conversation from friends you can trust. I already said that, but we're the friend.
Yeah,
I'm Nick Moffat. I'm here with Derek Deal. What's up, man?
not much. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just excited to talk about this movie,
Yeah,
Malignant.
yeah.
Malignant.
Mm-hmm.
The infectious tumor.
Good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. This movie's something else. This
Yeah.
movie's getting kind of mixed reviews, and I kind of get it, but also, dude, I'm gonna tell you straight up, right now, I was close to giving this 5 stars.
Yeah.
The movie, like, like 5 minutes before the movie ended, I was like 5 stars. I love it.
Yeah.
And then they didn't answer one of my questions. And I'm
Mm.
still confused about it. Maybe you can help explain it. After that, I was like, okay, 4 stars, four
Yeah.
stars, not quite five.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to talk about James Wan before we get started on this.
Yeah.
James Wan is the director of *Malignant*, and he's had quite the career, and I don't think he gets the respect that he deserves.
Yeah.
Coming from the horror background, he's very much a horror guy, and I mean, he's only been around since 2004 or so, but in that time, he's done a lot, and he's kind of reinvented cinema in some ways.
He's definitely
I,
like has a hand on the wheel of all horror. Like he has kind of been the guy pushing the trends of horror
Yeah, yeah,
in different
absolutely. So,
directions.
so I mean, let's get into it really quick. So, I mean, you know me, I love that Blank Check podcast. Like, I really think they should do James Wan because
They
looking at
should.
this filmography is like, man,
But
he's got the blank
I
check.
I
He's got,
wanted to text you after I saw *Malignant*. I was like, "Is this his blank check movie?" I
this
think it
kind of
is.
is,
Yeah,
kind of is. Even though like he's had a lot of success early
yeah,
on, like, I feel like this is the purest blank check. Like this is
yeah,
anyway. We'll get into it as
yeah.
we get into the episode, but when we say blank check, we mean like you can make any crazy passion project you want. And man, Malignant certainly was a crazy passion project. But anyway, so his first movie, right out the gate in 2004, was the first Saw movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Saw, if I remember correctly, kind of brought torture porn movies, body horror to the modern time.
Mm-hmm.
It was like Saw and then Hostel, and
Yeah,
then there was a rash of those type of movies. Eli Roth was right there with him with those kind of things, Cabin Fever and stuff. But
for sure.
Saw, I think, was the one that was like, here's torture, and
Mm-hmm.
let's get into it.
Yeah, because I think it was made really cheap and just made a lot of money, and
Oh
all
yeah,
the studios flocked to that. They're like, "How do we do this again?"
yeah. And then they made like seven of them,
Yeah,
but James Wan was only involved in the first one, or maybe he produced or
yeah, I
helped write.
think
I'm
so.
not really sure,
Yeah.
but he only directed the first one.
Mm.
And then he did Dead Silence, which I saw. It's like a
It's a
Chucky, not
Goosebumps
Chucky,
movie,
but
right?
yeah, basically it's like that. It's like
I
that
haven't
guy.
seen it.
Well, yeah, it's like a dummy,
Yeah,
comes alive or whatever. Not great, not great, but effective horror. Death Sentence is his next one. I haven't seen that one. I think that's kind of his forgotten movie.
yeah,
But and then he did the first Insidious movie, and Insidious, man, that's a horror movie.
yeah.
That the imagery in that movie is disturbing, and it keeps me awake at night.
I think like Saw and Insidious like are both pretty good representations of like what he brings to the table for horror. While Saw, like, I feel like both those movies are kind of medium, like, as far as how they were received and what people think back on them. But, like, Saw was such a big, like, just, it, like, kind of changed that industry. And I think
Yeah,
What Insidious did is it, like you said, the imagery, like, there's a lot of practical, like, makeup effects in that movie that are just so inventive and weird, and yeah, they just like embed in your mind, and
Yeah,
and that he kind of brings that forward in his career too with his other movies.
yeah, absolutely. I feel like I mean, I've seen Insidious, but it's been a while. I feel like I need to rewatch it because I was probably a little distracted when I saw it that one time.
Yeah.
And I'd really love to rewatch it, but I feel like Insidious and this next one, The Conjuring,
Mm-hmm.
really like are where he made like he stamped of this is me with horror.
Yeah.
Um, the modern horror landscape, I think, is kind of defined by the Conjuring movies, at
Yeah.
least the mainstream horror landscape. And Insidious right there with it too. It's like The Conjuring is, to me, The Conjuring brought supernatural spookiness back to the mainstream, and man, profitable, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Those are like, those are, modern blockbuster horror movies. Those are big box office kind of horror, which doesn't really exist all that often anymore.
And then he did Insidious Chapter 2. I haven't seen that one, but again, the imagery in the Insidious movies, I feel like is just something else.
Yeah.
And then he made the jump. He did Furious 7,
Mm-hmm.
which that's a big budget.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big task. That's the one where Paul Walker died midway through the movie, and he was able to spin it and turn it into an emotional like goodbye for him. That I think in some ways the seventh one is the most emotional just because of the tie-ins to real life, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also just it's a great movie.
Yeah.
The effects in that movie, the stunts, the bad guy. Like I think Furious 7 is one of the best Fast and Furious movies.
Agreed.
And then you went back to Conjuring 2, which another solid horror. I mean, that one freaks me out. We watched it together. That's
Mm-hmm.
a solid horror. And
Yeah.
but then he went back and he did Aquaman. Like
Yeah.
this guy did Aquaman. This guy started with Saw, did Insidious and The Conjuring, and then he did Aquaman.
Yeah.
Aquaman. It's just man. And it's like Aquaman's not my favorite, but I know people love it. Like you're a fan.
Yeah. I like it. It's
Very
yeah.
goofy.
It's crazy because yeah. It's like, I mean, I think it makes sense like following Furious 7, like Aquaman. Like when you watch it, you're like, I can see like through lines between the two, of like, he's got a knack for large scale like action sequences, and then also like the cheesiness. And I think the cheesiness exists in all his movies. Fast and Furious is kind of known for its cheesiness, and Aquaman is filled with cheese. And
Right.
but yeah, it is pretty crazy. Like I don't be curious to look at what the budget for Saw was, but I know it's very very low. It was like very few locations and stuff. And I'm pretty sure Aquaman's like $250 million budget or something like that. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty incredible career in pretty short time. 15 years at that point, not even.
Yeah. No, it's really cool, and
Yeah.
I'm happy for the guy. I feel like he's got a lot of talent there, and you saying that his movies are cheesy. I think that might be. I was kind of saying earlier that his doesn't get the respect because of horror. That might
Yeah.
be part of it, but also the cheesiness too. I think
Yeah.
that a lot of critics and movie fans, they scoff at cheesiness, but kind of love it.
Yeah.
I
No,
love
I
just
love.
cheesy.
Yeah. I a lot of people find cheesiness like, I don't know, like it feels like the movie's not trying hard enough or something to win their respect, but the cheesiness for me is oftentimes some of those heartfelt moments that kind of ground the movie for me. So when the movie doesn't totally take its, or it's the movie's taking itself too seriously, which is also really endearing to me. So I like
Yeah,
that.
totally. Um, yeah. I just was looking at our show notes. You
Mm.
mentioned like in the same kind of thing. You mentioned like the spectrum of horror that James Wan is on.
Yeah.
Um, do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was just like kind of thinking because he's been a large. We were just talking about. He's been a large part of the last 10 years of horror. You know, Saw spawned like seven sequels. Conjuring spawned like seven sequels. Insidious has done. They're coming out with a fifth one. Um, and he's on like the spectrum of like big budget horror movies. But when I think of like the best horror movies of the last 10 years, the first things that come to mind are like the Robert Edgar stuff, and Ari Aster, like Hereditary and stuff, which are incredible movies and they're so scary. The Witch and Midsummer and stuff like that.
Oh
But
yeah.
they're kind of a completely different approach to.
Whereas like even like the Lighthouse,
Yeah.
Robert Eggers' Lighthouse, it's not like gritty and grounded in reality, but it certainly has like a starkness about it that's not cheesy. It's like
Right.
it's surreal,
Yeah.
but it's still um I don't know, it's not realistic, but I want to say that it's like I don't know, it's serious.
Yeah. I
You
use
know,
the
where
I made up the word, or I said artisanal horror. Like it kind of
okay,
feels like it's more of like a very finely crafted and gestated like thing that they make, and it's like it's incredibly well researched. These accents, they like had to rebuild languages for the witch, or accents for the witch
yeah,
that no one uses before and stuff. It's like
yeah,
stuff like that. It's like really getting into um like the fine specific things, and really bringing like a very artistic approach to it and everything like that. Whereas I feel like James Wan is much more on like the let's get into the theater and have a blast, kind of thing, like just like bucket of popcorn movie. And which I love both of those equally. I'm not like one to necessarily put like a someone who is very obsessed with the artistic value of what they're doing over someone that just wants to create a cinematic experience, that you're going to remember and have a blast with. Those are both on the same level for me. So, and I feel like that's where they kind of lie. There's not a lot of crossover between their kind of horror.
yeah. And I think I think there's something to like just because someone's making something cheesy or poppy or you know showy,
Mm.
it doesn't mean that they don't have something to say. You
Yeah,
know, because I would
exactly.
argue that a lot of James Wan movies actually have like a lot of deeper themes going on, especially this one, *Malignant*. And there's a lot to unpack,
Yeah,
but it just he does it in a way that's kind of like tonally silly sometimes.
yeah.
Um,
And it's not to say that his movies lack like artistic sensibilities either, because I think he's really creative. I think he's one of the more creative directors, and he comes out. He's got a lot of cool ways of shooting different scenes that I mentioned in the show notes. That I've, like, there's multiple times throughout almost every movie I watch that he makes where I'm like, I have never seen someone shoot that scene like that. Like I've seen this kind of scene before, but that's cool. Like that's a new thing.
totally.
And yeah, that's just the. It's fun to. I think it's important to appreciate that kind of stuff. And
Yeah, dude. Well, let's get into *Malignant*.
yeah,
We've already kind of started talking about it a little bit,
yeah,
but *Malignant* stars Annabelle Wallis, Maddie Hassan, and George Young. Plot description pulled from Letterboxd, IMDb, and Google because I wasn't really satisfied with any of them, but it was the same one on each of them. Paralyzed by fear from shocking visions, a woman's torment worsens as she discovers her waking dreams are terrifying reality. It's currently in theaters or on HBO Max. So the thing I don't like about that description is the word paralyzed,
yeah.
because I don't think that she is ever truly paralyzed. I mean, maybe every once in a while she likes it, like she's paralyzed in her visions while they're
Right.
happening.
Yeah.
But other than that, it gives the I think this that description makes it sound like she's like I don't know bedridden or something.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, man. real quick, talking about the cheesiness of Malignant, the
Yeah.
first scene, the opening scene of the movie starts, and it's crazy, and
Yeah.
the characters are just like yelling, and there's all sorts of stuff happening, and it's a lot to take in. And I was sitting there, I literally said, "Are we watching a movie inside of a movie?" Because it kind of felt like it was so cheesy that it couldn't have really been the movie we were
Right.
watching, because that's supposed to be like a really scary movie, and I'm like laughing, you know.
Right.
But again, I
It
love
was almost
laughing with
like
horror
an
movies. Like,
Evil Dead feeling to it.
yeah, yeah. And but then the opening scene ends. This character that we don't know yet, like, basically looks at the camera and goes, "We have to cut out the cancer." And it's like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. And then it goes in these credits that are
Yeah.
like pretty disturbing. It's like some sort of hospital notes, and they're like all these like gross descriptions of like brains and things being cut. Like, it's like, what the hell are we
Yeah.
watching? And then the movie kind of gets going, and I feel like it's pretty grounded, at least initially. You
Yeah.
know, it's you know, the main character Annabelle Wallis plays this woman who's in an abusive relationship, and she's pregnant, and um there is like some really upsetting stuff with the pregnancy and the guy that she's with,
Yeah.
um, and then it kind of turns into like a like it's one of the, it like it turns into a mixture of a lot of different genres of
Mm-hmm.
movies. Like, this is kind of one of the things I liked about it, was that it felt like James Wan was like playing homage to the history of horror movies. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there were elements of slasher with this movie. Like, there people were just kind of like being killed off like they do in slasher movies.
Yeah.
Um, there were elements of psychological horror where you were kind of going, is she going crazy? Is
Right.
she the one doing this? Like, is there something else going on? And is she psychic? Is she talking to the devil? Like, it left you like wondering like what was going on inside of her brain.
Right.
And
Some haunted house elements too.
haunted house elements, supernatural,
Yeah.
like it felt like there were a lot of things going on with this movie, and at the heart of it, at least for most of the plot, there was like a mystery of what was going on. Like, there were these couple cops that were kind of trying to solve these murders that kept happening, and she was in the center of them.
Yeah.
But again, she's like this like pregnant lady who's like recovering from acute trauma to the head, and 'cause that's like what happens. Her minor spoiler, like, her boyfriend slams her head into the wall, and it's just you know, so it's like she can't be the killer
Yeah.
anyway. So um, yeah, I was actually pretty like interested in
The
the
mystery.
story.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I was like engaged. I was wondering what the hell's going on. You know,
Yeah.
I was into it.
Especially with that
And
opening scene, you're like, how is this connected? What does
right,
that
right.
scene have to do with any of this?
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
keep thinking back to that, and so it's like it does a pretty good job of, like, you know, opening the doors and letting you guess what's happening,
Yeah.
you know? It's
Yeah.
like one of those like kind of like see if you can figure it out
I think that's
kind of
that's
stories.
part of what's fun about him kind of dialing into those different like tropes is you're kind of like moving with those tropes. You're like, oh, okay, so it's a okay haunted house, eh? But then it like kind of changes to a different kind of movie. Like, oh, well, maybe it's a maybe this is so it's constantly kind of changing genres within the horror,
Right.
and you're kind of changing how you're trying to solve the mystery in your head too.
Yeah, it's like, again, it's kind of what goes back to what you were saying before of like I've seen movies like this, but
Yeah.
it feels different. Like, it's shot different. You're totally right. Like, it
Yeah.
James Wan has a lot of style,
Yeah.
and he knows how to move a camera, but it's also like he's aware of what you might be thinking about as an audience member who has
Mm-hmm.
seen slashers and seen uh you know, haunted house movies and stuff before,
Right.
and what traps you might fall into
Yeah.
with those movies. And then, you know, and then the ending happens, and, you know, without spoiling it, it is like, you know, it is something that I've never seen before and was pretty shocking.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish so badly I got to go see this in theaters. I'm like still debating on if I should just like on the way home one day just stop and go watch a showing. Just but
It'd
it
be pretty cool.
it feels like a movie that would be awesome in with like a pretty like a busy theater with like a lot of audience reactions because it's got especially in the end it's just like I could feel the energy. I was like, man, if it was in a theater right now, like it would be going crazy. People would be
Oh,
like,
I was flipping out. Like I'll
I
be
was
honest,
too, absolutely.
I, I was on my couch basically yelling. I
Did,
was just like,
did Shannon
just
watch this with you?
yeah, most of it. I think
Okay,
she was kind of in and out for parts of it, but she watched. Yeah, she watched it,
yeah,
and yeah, we had a couple friends over from at they're out of town and they're staying with us, and they watched it too, and it was just
nice.
like,
That sounds pretty fun.
it was. Well, we can get into the ending and spoilers. I really don't want to say anything, but
Yeah,
this is kind of what I heard going into the movie was that like the movie seems like it's a regular kind of horror movie, and then the ending happens and it's bonkers.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
should we just get into it? Should we talk about the ending?
Yeah,
Should we just
well, I
get
was gonna
into
say
it?
there's a couple other things that I really liked about the movie, real quick,
Yeah,
which
let's
was
talk.
I thought its soundtrack slash score was really cool and like kind of different for this. So, like, was that like a weird horror version of the Pixies?
It
Okay,
was
that's what I
good
thought.
ear there because yeah, Shannon called that out too, and I didn't hear it at first. They played
Yeah,
a few times of the movie, but yeah,
yeah,
it's a weird remixed or covered version of Where's My Mind.
yeah.
Super weird.
And I liked it. I don't know, like it
It's
kind of
like it's like ooh.
yeah. In the it kind of has the I guess it didn't really have the guitar, I don't think, really, right? But it has like it's
Almost
just
like a
yeah, it's kind
synth
of a
droning kind of noise.
yeah. But it worked for me. It like and it was loud and like it would kind of just slam in between like scenes, like when the detectives are like walking into the next scene or something. And I don't know, it just had some interesting I whatever they did with the soundtrack, I thought was just it was kind of different and it worked for me. And I always like when some pop music shows up in some movies. It gets you jazzed up, gets you excited and stuff. And
Yeah.
that cover was cool, I thought. Um,
I feel
also,
like I have to listen to that cover out of context. Like I need to like see if it's on
right,
Spotify because I
yeah,
was like so wrapped up in the movie that I couldn't like I liked it. I liked the song. I liked it in the movie.
yeah,
And I'm wondering what it sounds like just,
by
when
itself,
I'm at
yeah.
work or something.
I thought it was cool to see the movie kind of committed a little bit harder to being in Seattle more than most movies that are take place in Seattle do like a opening shot and they never go back to it. This movie actually has quite a bit of like lore and stuff that is built around the city, like the Seattle Underground, and they mention like we're in. I don't remember what they said, Bainbridge Island or something, or up on
Yeah.
Wallingford. They actually kind of committed
Yeah.
to being in
They had
Seattle,
some
which was kind of fun.
they had some really beautiful shots of the city and stuff, and I totally
Yeah,
agree. I loved how they had it in the Seattle Underground. That was actually like a funny thing because we
yeah,
were kind of, you know, we weren't, during the movie, it was like, oh, the Seattle Underground. And our friends from that town were like, what is this place? Like, they were just like, there's just like stuff underground. We're like, yeah, like literally Seattle was built on Seattle.
yeah,
We should go there next time you're in
yeah.
town. Like,
There's actually
we could
haunted
go
tours
tomorrow.
of it too. You can go to
Yeah,
like
and
scary haunted tours.
right, and then then the movie kind of takes place in Seattle. I was like, I'm never going to the Seattle Underground. Not doing
Yeah, um, that was fun. Just because usually we get the short end of the Seattle stick, where they're like, it's in Seattle, but really Vancouver. We don't really care.
Sure, totally.
Um,
I made a joke on Letterboxd. The CLPD around here doesn't have the best reputation,
yeah, yeah,
and like just there's a few times in the movie where the cops do like very suspect things, like not like abusive or anything like that, but just like, come on, a cop wouldn't do that. Like
right.
they put a potential killer like in like they think they got the
Oh, right,
murderer,
right.
and then they like put the person in like a an occupied jail cell with like other. It's just like I
Right,
think they would put her somewhere private because she's a
right.
dangerous
She's a
person, dangerous
murder
person.
suspect.
Yeah.
Like it's not a DUI or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, actually, I was gonna say the one thing, if I wanted to be critical about these kind of movies, which I don't usually like to, because it's very clear that they're kind of doing like a schlocky, silly thing at times. I think it's supposed to be kind of fast and loose and not like a very, you're not supposed to be super critical about it. But the one trope that I feel like exists a lot, especially in the 2000s horror movies, is like the detective side story. And usually that doesn't work. And in this movie, it kind of fell into the same problems. I felt like at times was just like, you don't really, they're there to kind of help us move through the story and process things. Um, but it's always kind of disappointing that you don't really care about them at all. They're almost just there to kind of give you some information.
Yeah.
I do think they did a little bit better job with this one. I think the guy detective, was actually, he's charming. They gave him some personality, which is just like all the girls were constantly fawning over him.
Yeah.
And then he has a really cool chase sequence that I thought was actually really awesome and fun. Um, so he had a little bit more to do than most of the detectives in these kind of movies do, but that was the one thing that was kind of just felt like they fell into that same trap that a lot of horror movies do, where they just have those characters that just don't matter and they take up a lot of screen time and they don't really add much.
Well, yeah,
But
there's that part towards the end where like the movie tells us what happened.
yeah,
Like it tells us what happened.
mm,
And we're like, "Oh wow, that's what happened. Crazy."
yeah,
And then there's like right afterward there's a scene where the sister calls the cop and explains everything
has
that
to walk
happens
through
as an
it.
exposition dump and you're
Yeah,
like, we're watching it going,
I
"We
know.
know all this. We just watched it." Just
Hmm.
I don't know, yeah, that kind of thing, right? Where
Yeah,
like they're trying to keep like they're trying to make sure be 100% sure that the
uh,
audience is on
yeah.
board with what's happening.
Well, and they don't want to have that like logic jump where all of a sudden the cops know, because then people are being, well, how do the cops know all of a sudden? It's like, well,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to spend time dumping the exposition. But
Yeah.
it's kind of, there's got to be, I'm sure there's people that have pulled that off. I just don't know what it is, and I feel like, yeah, this movie kind of fell into that
Yeah, I
same
did
thing a little
like the
bit.
chemistry between the lead cop and the sister. They
Mm-hmm.
had they had like instant chemistry, and I kind
For
of dug
sure.
that.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, cool. Like they like there's something there, but not like super explicit. But that's also part of my like other like Seattle PD like kind of joke of like what's this cop doing? Like kind of flirting with this like suspect's sister, like
Right.
doesn't seem very professional.
Yeah. For sure. Well,
But
yeah.
mostly.
I think that's my last non-spoiler thing.
Okay, cool. Well, let's
So
get into spoilers because I'm eager to talk about it.
yeah.
So, spoilers from this point on. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers.
Pretty big spoiler. Like I would
Pretty,
recommend not listening if you haven't seen it, because it's a really exciting
pretty
ending.
big spoiler.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's just like lay it out really quick.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, um, when her boyfriend or husband, I can't remember if they're married, but she slammed her head against the wall,
Mm-hmm.
and that opened up like a creature that was living like not creature but like a another person that was like living
it,
inside of her the back end of her brain.
I think they call it a parasitic twin.
Yes. So it opened up, so when she was born there was another person that was basically living on the other side of her head, that was like a small little like fetus looking thing that had arms and like a weird face, and it was like wow.
I
And it
think
told
they
her to do,
shared a brain, or
yeah,
it
they
lived off of her brain, I think, or
yeah,
something.
it shared her brain, or yeah, and then it could make her see things and do things. Like it could take over her brain and make her think that she was just doing something normal, like sit
Mm.
in bed or reading a book or just whatever. Like she
While it's
thinks she's just
controlling her
doing
body.
something regular while her body is running around backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like the chase scene you mentioned. You're like watching like this person like run around, and you could tell they're like running. Their limbs are backward, but they're
Yeah.
running straight. But like their limbs are backwards, and
Yeah.
their sweatshirt is on the other way around, and um, it's a very weird,
It's
surreal
bizarre
sight.
to see.
Yeah, and yeah, so it's like it the cancer that they talked about in the first scene was that. So they decided to just cut that whole thing off and then stuff what they couldn't cut off inside of her skull and basically
Seal it off.
tape it shut. Yeah, like heal it shut. And then so when it opened up, it kind of opened the door for Gabriel. That's what they call the parasitic twin.
Mm.
Uh, Gabriel to kind of come back out and like literally there's a scene where he like opens up her skull and it's like Wah! Which
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved
There's
all of this. Like
me
the
too.
the body horror elements of this movie were so shocking and outrageous and just like oh my goodness, I was just jaw dropping. Like I was just freaking
What
out about all of it.
at what point did you do you think you figured it out? Was it when they showed you or
Well, here's the thing. I feel like I figured out that it was something to do with her,
yeah.
at least at the chase scene. You know, like I'm
Yeah.
like her. It was like her long hair, and she's like running, and it's like okay, like something weird's going on where that's like she's running backwards. So, but you don't know it's her, but it like I don't know, it like kind of looks like her,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like I kind of got the sense that something was going on. If I was the cops, I would have locked her up basically immediately.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like it was like she's like the number one suspect right
Right.
from the get go.
Everyone's
Um,
connected to her. Like
well, not everyone,
well,
like,
not everyone,
but
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 also
she like
she
turned herself in. She was like,
yeah.
the guy who killed my husband just killed someone I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'll take you to his house
But
to
I
show you that it
know where
happened.
his
Yeah,
body is. Yeah.
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 And he was stabbed this many times. So, yeah, you're going to jail. Like
Yeah.
we don't. You shouldn't be out in public. You
Yeah.
definitely killed somebody.
I think when it was when it was revealed that her bio bomb was like in her attic because I
mm,
the whole time they have like little breadcrumbs where like her head just keeps
totally.
bleeding. And I
Oh yeah.
kept thinking about that. I was like, okay, I knew like my first thought, well, not first, but like, you know, halfway through the movie, I was thinking back. I was like, okay, he smashed her head again. Okay, so that was the inciting incident. I kind of figured that out
Okay.
because they kept coming
Yeah.
back to the bleeding head. I was like, okay, so that has
It's a good
something to do
call.
with it.
I
Yeah.
got hung up. I was like, man, I can't believe the hospital sent her home with her bleeding this much.
Right. And then, but yeah, once the mom was in there, I was like, that on like the first thing that popped in my head was like, or maybe she has like a Voldemort thing going on from like the first Harry Potter book with like the Voldemort on the back of the head thing. It's
Oh,
kind
so
of
you
what I
actually
was
like
thinking.
connected it with that,
Yeah,
huh?
but I didn't think that they took it a lot further than I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
imagine it being like this other human on the back of her like body and
Yeah.
stuff, which is
See, I didn't see.
crazy.
So I yeah, like I'm with you. Like I thought it was her, but then I didn't really like. I didn't even think that there was another person living inside of her head or like coming off of her until I saw it. I
Yeah.
think. I kind of I think Siamese twins kind of popped into my head a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
But again, like the creature looked full size,
Yeah.
and so I just was like, it's probably not a Siamese twin. But then yeah, it really wasn't any twin. It was like this thing that was can't even explain it. It was
They
just so strange.
it's really well done how they reveal it too because it's not even a jump scare. It's like a slow like they're about to reveal it. And like it's like they're watching an old VHS tape, right? And the camera guy's like slow like shit's going crazy in like the operating room or whatever, and he comes around the corner and you just see in full glory like this thing on the back, and in
Yeah,
the characters watching and just like, oh my god. And then you have that you cannot help
yeah.
but just like yell at that moment. It's not even like it's not like a jump scare. It's a truly horrifying image and one you never expected to see.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely, absolutely. It was very, very weird.
yeah.
Um, so I mean, let me ask you really the thing that I was confused about, that I still am confused about.
Yeah.
How did Gabriel have like electrical power?
So
Like
he
there were
yeah.
he kept like futzing with electricity. He was like blowing out lights, and he was like talking through like radio waves and
Yeah.
stuff. Like how if he was just inside of her brain, like there's a scene in the end towards the end where she like lifted up something really big, like it was like a table fell on her sister, and she
Yeah.
was like, it's been in my body all along, I can do it. And so
Yeah.
then she lifted it up. But like, I mean, she can't like shoot electricity out of her fingers
Right.
now that.
Or explode all the lights in a room and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so what was up with
I
that? Did they explain that, or did I just miss
I don't
that?
think they explained it, but my assumption was just that he is evil. He is like this evil entity that is like I don't think a parasitic twin's a real thing. Maybe it is, but I don't really.
Let's Google it.
Yeah,
Click, click, click,
I
click, click.
guess this sounds like a scary Google. uh, like I think the idea is that it is like this evil creature that's living, that's controlling her body and controlling her mind, and it has abilities beyond what a regular human would. It's kind of just my assumption.
Okay. So like he's not like necessarily like the devil or a demon or something, but like maybe though.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I just figured it was he's got supernatural stuff. Yeah, they didn't really explain it, but I just
Okay.
because there's also like weird scenes that don't fully make sense unless he is some sort of supernatural. Like when the husband in the beginning like goes downstairs and sees the thing on the couch, and then he turns on the light and the thing's gone. Like if that was her, then how did she just disappear in thin air? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, but
there's
maybe that was what he was showing her, right? Like
like
maybe
she was
maybe
seeing
that was
that.
her like upstairs and that's what she was
We were
seeing.
seeing it from
And
her perspective.
yeah,
It
or
could be.
like Gabriel was just showing
You're
her.
right. I think you're right.
Uh, and if you look at it that way, maybe if we watch the movie, maybe they're just like all of that is just like what she saw. Like maybe
Yeah.
there wasn't actually any weird electrical stuff.
Yeah. Like he Yeah, that might be it. Like he was making her believe that he's
No, but there's a
more
scene
to.
where there's a scene with the cops where she's on the smartphone, right?
Yeah.
She's like, I want, he wants to talk to you, and then it like comes out of that speaker, right?
Yeah.
And then but I don't know, probably gotta rewatch it. I don't know.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, I probably will rewatch this movie. Like, I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm not saying it all will magically make sense.
No.
I think I'm okay with horror movies kind of not making sense sometimes, just for the fear factor.
Yeah.
Um, but um, I think this one was a very effective horror movie, and I think that it's going to have like cult status
Mm-hmm.
years to come. I think people are going to be talking.
Do you think it's gonna have the James Wan effect of spawning 7 sequels?
No,
I
I
hope it
kind of hope
doesn't.
not.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't seem like a movie that needs a sequel or should have one. Um, can I tell you the other thing that this movie reminded me of?
Yeah.
Um, that episode of The Office where Dwight was talking about how when he was
Oh yes, I
in
know.
his mother's when he was in his mother's womb, and he had that ball thing. He's going, when I was in my mother's womb, she had twins, but next time they checked, I had absorbed the other twin. So I have the powers of myself and of a little baby. It just looks like, yeah, it's just like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's how it works. Um. Yeah. Um. I guess so. There's a lot. I can't remember how long it goes after it reveals. I think it's pretty much the third act, right? There's some cool action stuff that I really liked. There's that chase scene we mentioned, which I'd be really curious to see how they film that. I kind of feel like they had to do like a Tenet thing where they film the action scene in reverse and like
Yeah, maybe.
rewind it
Totally.
or something. But
Yeah.
because it's a bizarre looking scene. It's like, yeah, it's a backwards human sprinting and like running backwards and like fighting, and there's a cool like police station like brawl between the main the baddie, you know, the bad
Gabriel.
Gabriel, there you go, Gabriel, and like all of the cops, and
Yeah, that was the scene I was mentioning earlier, where like basically they like arrest um Emily,
yeah,
and they're like, "We think you killed like a bunch of people,
yeah,
so here we're putting you in the cell with 10 other women who are like just DUI or whatever people."
yeah,
And they're like, "Ah, look at this bitch. You know, she shouldn't be in a jail cell." And
yeah,
then she just like murders all of them,
yeah,
and then like a bunch of cops, and just like I don't
yeah.
know. It's like, man,
Like the entire
SPD.
everything
Yeah,
in the police station is dead.
yeah.
Yeah,
She
but
kills so many people.
it was pretty cool. It was actually like, you know, it had like a weird the lens they shot that with is like a bizarre. It almost felt like this weird like fisheye like
Mhm.
lens. Like it was kind of weird looking, and it reminded me of Lee Winnell, who they kind of came up together. You know, Lee Winnell was in Saw, and they've worked. Sorry, my dogs are in here and they're annoying. But and they're both Australian directors. They both horror directors. And Lee Winnell, at least in my book, has really made a name doing these really cool, awesome, stylized fight scenes in his horror movies,
Yeah.
and which isn't common in horror movies. I feel like a big, you know, maybe there's like the ending showdown between the baddie and the hero, but
Lee Winnell did like The Invisible Man, right? And uh
Upgrade,
Unbreakable. Upgrade.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
yeah, they both have that, and this kind of felt like that. I kind of felt like James Wan kind of dipping his toes into like, let's see if I can do a really cool like stylized, like awesomely choreographed fight scene. It wasn't as cool and stylized as I think. Like Lee Winnell has just a weird way of shooting it, where it's just like nobody shoots fight scenes like that. You know, it just like swings the camera full like 180 and like just like weird. But it was still fun, and you know, it kind of changes the pace of the movie a little bit in a fun way. Um, it's not just like a dramatic horror movie, you know. Kind of turns into this awesome, like pretty violent, like 10-minute action sequence between Gabriel and all the police and stuff. So
Boy.
um, I like that a lot. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Great scene. That was another one where I was just like freaking out because it was
Yeah,
just like the brutality of this movie.
yeah,
And like as she was killing all these other people in the police station, it wasn't just like, "Oh, you're dead, you're dead." It was like bone shatters,
right.
like head is split open, blood is gushing. It was like really graphic
Yeah.
scenes, and I think I've said like I love body horror, so
Mm-hmm.
like it was again like what I was mentioning at the beginning. It was like he started incorporating elements of body horror in it. It's like
Yeah,
this movie could go in a lot of different categories with horror.
for sure. Well, the scene's really unsettling too because they don't shy away from Gabriel's face once the reveal happens. So like
Yeah,
he's like, you know, he's got like his head poking out the back of her skull. But then like on the back of his head is like her blank face, like
totally.
dead eyes while he's like brutally murdering all these people.
Because she thinks that she's just like sitting in that police station, like not
Yeah.
doing anything.
Yeah.
It's
And
so funny.
that psychological stuff there in the end is really fun too. I like that. Like she's kind of like she's discovering that this is what's going on while it's happening also. So she starts realizing like there's like dead bodies and stuff, and she's like, I got to figure out how to take control, and like, um, yeah, I just those last like 20 minutes for sure. Like I just really loved. I feel like they that ending. I think they knew they had in their pocket, and like once it starts going, it's like all the way to the end of the movie. It's I loved it. I thought it was
Yeah,
Very, very
I
well done.
agree. I agree. Well, listen, Derek, we've been talking about this for a while. I think we need to wrap it up.
Yeah, it's fine.
But yeah, this movie is really fun. I'm wondering if our other podcast buddies would enjoy it.
Yeah,
Because again, I don't think it's necessarily a movie for everybody, but I think it is a movie for horror fans.
yeah, for
So if
sure.
you're a fan of horror, I highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
So
James Wan
yeah,
still got it for horror movies,
yeah.
not just an action director.
So next week, I think Sean is going to take the lead, and he's going to be doing the Card Counter, the new Oscar Isaac movie,
Mm-hmm.
and
It's a Paul Schrader movie. I didn't know that until
yeah,
I just looked it up.
Paul Schrader, First Reformed, right?
Yeah,
Bunch of other stuff too.
wrote Taxi Driver and stuff.
Oh yeah, that that man.
Yeah.
Um,
All
cool.
right.
Well, so yeah, this has been the Monthly Movie Dispatch. Please like and subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Um, Derek, do you have any closing thoughts?
No.
Cool. Well, keep watching movies and enjoying yourself. Have a great day.
Bye.